So we are in Deuteronomy 2 and 3, and I got really busy with work and I didn't get a chance to really dig into it until yesterday for the background. But what I thought was just going to be, we'll review some history and we'll look at the wilderness wanderings. There's an author by the name of Michael Heiser, and Cody's talked about him before, and he's done a lot of research into the ancient mindset and the ancient languages, and he passed away a few years ago, but he's published a book called The Unseen Realm. And I said, well, I think he's big on Deuteronomy, so let me crack that book open. Well, he had like 4 chapters on Deuteronomy 2 and 3. So, and what it answers is we're going to hit this section where it says we wiped out every man, woman, and child. And in our mindset, we kind of go, our God is okay with that. But once you see, which is theory, once you see what's going on, there's something else going on there. Oh my, screaming and yes. And so it kind of gives that rough statement that they just wholesale slaughtered everyone and gives it a little bit of context. So we're going to dig into that as we go. This is all, so we're wrapping up the wilderness wanderings, and so this is Beersheba. Jerusalem would be, Beersheba's down here, Jerusalem's up here. So they're kind of in this desert area wandering around, and they're getting ready, and this is recap, they're getting ready to go into the promised land. And next week, chapter 4, is going to be Moses' first real sermon where he's encouraging the people to be faithful and remember God's faithfulness and how he provided. So a lot of what these 2 chapters are covering is just reminding the people, hey Billy, just reminding the people how faithful God is and how he provided and how he went ahead of them. Yeah, we're just starting. All right, can someone read, and we've got lots to cover, so there'll be a lot of reading. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 6.
And we turned and journeyed into the wilderness in the direction of the Red Sea, as the Lord told me. And for many days we traveled around Mount Seir. And the Lord said to me, you have been traveling around this mountain country long enough. Turn northward and command the people, you are about to pass through the territory of your brothers, the people of Esau, who live in Seir. They will be afraid of you, so be very careful. Do not contend with them, for I will not give you any of their land. No, not so much as for the sole of the foot to tread on, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. You shall purchase food from them with money that you may eat, and you shall also buy water for them with money that you may
Right off the bat, we see something very uncharacteristic of an ancient army. When they march through, usually the rule was you take what you want, you plunder, they're already afraid of you, you make them feel the pain. No, he's calling them to be, God's calling this generation to be disciplined. So there's that side of it, and having the faith to trust in those instructions, which is, again, a contrast to that first generation that went into Kadesh Barnea to attack, and then they got scared. They saw the giants, and then they got scared, and then they were basically started a riot among the camp, and so God punished them. So very different here. The other thing is Edom, and that's also Esau. So Edom and Esau are synonymous. Jacob's brother, right? And we studied that in Genesis. So it's the Bible is Israelite centric, but also you see God moving in the other relatives of Abraham. So they were given a land of their own, the Edomites were. And God said, no, they're protected. They are under my protection. So it's God is working. He's going to do the same with the Moabites up here and then the Ammonites up here. So God is working throughout people who don't even believe in him, right? He's working and protecting them. And the one thing that I read is that all of these stories in the Old Testament, a lot of them, if not all of them, have a New Testament parallel. So we see a picture of in the Old Testament, and then we have some kind of truth in the New Testament. Philippians 4:19, and my God will supply all your needs according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. So we see God providing their needs here, and then Jesus, same as Jesus provides our needs. So whenever we see the Lord God in the Old Testament, that's Jesus. Because Jesus is the Lord God in flesh. So it's all, all drawing that connection.
You're trying to say there's only one God?
There's only one God, believe it or not.
Not Jesus and Son?
Huh?
Not God and Son?
Well, no, God is, God in 3 parts. So Jesus is God, for sure. Jesus is the Lord.
I know Jesus is a God, but I believe that it always has been God the Father.
Yes.
And God the Son.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. St. Patrick used supposedly used the diagram of a clover, how clover has 3 leaves. It's one clover, but there's 3 parts to it. So fully God in every respect. Thank you for clarifying that. So again, this is Jesus, and Jesus wrote the 10 Commandments. It was Jesus' finger that did all that. So let's see what there. Yeah, he always keeps his promises. Cody's line is, you cannot take any land that is not given to you. Note the land he gave to Esau, and then remember we read in Genesis, Jacob have I loved, Esau how have I hated. Now, that has a different meaning. It just means loved less, because Jesus says, if you don't hate your father and mother, you cannot be my disciple. Jesus just meant you have to put me preeminent, not that you hate your parents, especially on Mother's Day, that would be bad taste. So, but even those he loved less, they still get their own land. Let's do 7 and 8.
For the Lord your God hath blessed you in all your works and all your hands. He knows you're turtling through this great wilderness. These 40 years the Lord your God has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. And when he passed beyond our brethren, the descendants of Esau, who dwelt in Syria, away from the road of the pain, always from earth, and his ungirded river. We turned to pass by the way of the wilderness of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab, nor contend with the coming battle, for I will not give you any of the land as I possess, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot as a possession, and he moved dwelt there in time past, a people of great and numerous and tall, and they were also regarded as giants like the Anakim. But the Moabites, Bonham, Bereans, and the Hephathites formerly dwell in Syria, but a descendant of Esau is disposed them and destroy them from before them that dwelt in the place, just as Israel did the land and possessed them with the Lord gave to them.
So we have this parenthetical statement about these people that Esau and Moab and the others had to push out first. And we'll come back to that. So what they did, and let me go back here actually. So the wilderness was all in here. They hung out in this area. There's a way to get to Edom through this pass here. But God says, no, we're going to do that. We're going to swing around. This is, if you remember the story in John 3, Jesus says, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, this is where that took place, is in this area here. And so these towns, he tells them, swing around this way, Etzion, Geber, and Elath, which is today, it's a big resort town because it's right on the Red Sea, and weather's always pretty nice. And so this is where you've got a little bit Jordan, and then Saudi Arabia, and then the state of Israel are all coming together right at this point here. So they're swinging around here, and then they're going to go back up into the land of Edom. And so Mount Seir is where is kind of the landmark for Edom. So we got this thing called the Anakim. The Anakim too are regarded as Rephaim, and we got all those weird names. So it was the Anakim that were in this area that caused the first generation to be afraid. They go, there's giants in the land. And they were right, but they forgot that God had promised to slay those giants. In Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of mankind, and they bore children to them. There were mighty men who were old men of renown. So you get these half spirit, half human. There's a gene pool problem. Now there's other alternatives, the way people read Genesis 6, but I think the prevailing thought is, no, there was some kind of satanic activity where fallen angels or demons fell to earth, and then they interpopulated. And so that was the reason for the flood. But then right in Genesis 6 it says, in those days, in the time of Noah, and then also afterward.
So they were after that.
Yeah. So whatever Satan tried, he tried again here. Numbers 13 is talking about when they were trying to attack. We saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak are part of the Nephilim, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. So basically, they were giants. And so this parentheses says, yes, not only did you see giants here, there's giants and these weird creatures in Edom and Moab and throughout all this region too. So back in Genesis 15, then in the 4th generation, this is God telling Abraham, giving him the promise. You're not going to inherit, but your descendants will. In the 4th generation, and this is that generation now, they will return here. For the wrongdoing of the Amorite, is not yet complete. And you're going, okay, what's that about? There's some kind of judgment that God knows is going to happen, but the time is not right yet. Well, now the time is getting right. The way I've heard it expressed is when God told Abraham that, yeah, you're going to have 4 generations before you're back in this land, Satan says, oh, I'm going to get to work now. Because if I can pollute and thwart the plan and keep them out of here, then the whole messianic thing is, in Satan's mind, he can thwart the plan that way. So he brings these demons back and interpopulates, and this is a strange theory. It's kind of like, well, this is not the way we think, but the way the ancients thought. And so a lot of what's going on in these 2 chapters is about this hybrid race that all of these people are pushing out and dispossessing. Same thing there. Okay, let's do 13 through 23. And if that's too long, we can have different people split it up.
It says, now rise and cross over the valley of Zered. So we crossed over the valley of Zered, and the time we took from Kadesh Barnea until we crossed over the valley of the Zered was 38 years, until all the generation of the men of war was consumed from the midst of the camp, just as the Lord had sworn to them. For indeed the hand of the Lord was against them, to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed.
Actually, stop there. So here's the Zered River, and this is a canyon, and it divided the land of Edom here and the land of Moab there. So basically, this is where we get, it was a total of 40 years, but the punishment phase was 38 years. We get that from this verse here. And so just think about that. And that kind of caught me as I was reading it yesterday. This generation saw the 10 plagues. This generation had the Passover and the Exodus and the death of the firstborn in Egypt. They still didn't possess what God wanted them to possess. So because of that, they had the whole 40 years wandering. And we kind of look back and say, how is that possible? How do you see all that and still doubt? And then you look in the mirror, right? And then I look in the mirror. All of the miracles and blessings that we have, and yet still we pause there. Okay, and then I can read 16 through 19. So it was when all the men of war had finally perished from among the people. God said to me, saying, this day you are to cross over at Ar, the boundary of Moab, up here. And when you come near the people of Ammon, do not harass them or meddle with them, for I will not give you the land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I've given it to the descendants of Lot as a possession. So first thing, I think it's interesting, they're called men of war, because that's exactly what they were not in this here, because they were supposed to attack and they didn't. They got afraid. So I think maybe it might mean they had a warrior spirit and a warrior heart and a rebellious heart, instead of being people of peace, which God wants us to be. They had a stirred up heart. So Edom was Jacob's brother. Moab, and then to the north here is Ammon. Those were Lot's by his daughters. Remember that scene? And I imagine the camp of Israel kind of going, we know how they started. So basically Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. Lot and his daughters escaped. And I'm sure what they were thinking was, we're the last 3 people left on earth, so we're going to have to repopulate. And so daughters go into Lot, and one has Ammon and the other has the son Moab. And so again, even though with those weird beginnings, is God still protecting them. Do not harm them, because I've given them their possession. And the most famous Moabite is Ruth, and Ruth is in Jesus' lineage. So again, if they had done what they probably thought they should do, we're supposed to wipe these people out. Well, no, then then we don't have Ruth and all that. And then Ruth is in David's line too. 20 through 23.
It says, that was also regarded as a land of giants. Giants formerly dwelt there. But the Ammonites called them Samsumim, a people as great and numerous as tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them before them, and they dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, just as he had done for the descendants of Esau, who dwelt in Seir when he destroyed the whores before them. They dispossessed them and dwelt in their place, even to this day. And the Adam who dwelt in the villages as far as Gaza, the Captorim, who came from Captor, destroyed them and dwelt in their place.
So that's a fascinating aside. He's talking about the Philistines here. And so the Philistines came from Captor, which is in the Greek Isles near Crete. And they, for whatever reason, we don't know why they left that area, but first they sailed, and as a people they started in Egypt. Egypt pushed them out, and they went up north to a place you might have heard of recently called Gaza. And so basically all of this was the land of the Philistines, and they inhabited the low-lying coastlines of the area. And I think it's fascinating that in the time of David and the kings, it's the Philistines were the enemy. That's who they were always battling with. But here, even the Philistines had to clear out some strange people. And it's all in the context of these Anakim, Zamzumim, Caphtorim, came from Caphtor, the Avim. And so they had to clear these people out before they could possess the land. So in a sense, it's God saying, look at all around you. Look what they're doing. And this is what I've asked you to do, and that first generation couldn't. All the other people could, so you can too. And I think God's providing that as a model, but saying, hey, look, keep your spirits up. These guys are not invincible, even though they're large and giants and all that. God is bigger. God is always bigger. The other thing is that he put fear, even in Edom and the Moabites, they had fear because of Israel. They're going to be afraid of you. And so the victory is already won. They just need to claim it. And I think that's a big lesson for us as we move forward. God uses examples in the past of how he conquered giants to encourage them. Do we study the ways of the Lord and memorialize how he answers prayers and conquers our enemies today? Verse 24 says, rise, take your journey, cross over the river Arnon. I have given into your hand Sihon, the king of the Amorite king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and engage him in battle. So now we've got to change, right? Don't touch these people, but this next guy. And so this is fascinating when I dug into in that Michael Heiser book. Don't confuse the Amorites with the Ammonites. Ammonites were Lot's. They're related to Abraham, so they're protected. According to historical and then the research Michael Heiser did, these guys came from Babylon. The Amorites came from Babylon. And so, if you didn't get a chance to watch the video, I put this dun dun dun, right? We're supposed to have this sinister, Babylon's not good. Not good. Egypt, not good. This is where we need to get them out of our lives. And here, they're trying to move in. And so again, symbolic of the enemy and trying to get the world in. So they come in. And we're going to have another tie-in as we move through into chapter 3. So they're kind of all over. These Amorites start taking over. And so back in the Genesis verse, the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet completed. And then we get to Joshua and it's talking about Canaanites. It's like, well, wait a minute, what's Amorites and Canaanites? Well, then what I learned was Amorites and Canaanites are interchangeable. Canaan is maybe a geographic reference for that land, and so they become known. I'm born in California, so I'm in California, but I also been living in Texas for a decade or more, and so I'm a Texan. So California and Texan, they become interchangeable. So maybe it's Amorite and Canaan the same way. So again, all of these people, and there's some weird things because all of this mythological stuff, a lot of it comes from Babylon. And so, what is the connection here? We'll see. This day I will put dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole heaven, who shall hear the report of you and shall tremble in anguish because of you. So again, the fear is they're afraid. And even when they get into Jericho in Joshua, they're going to send the 2 scouts to talk to Rahab, the prostitute. And she kind of has this attitude of, where you been? We thought you would be here 40 years ago. They've been watching. And so what was a punishment for the Israelites was really like, water torture for everyone else because they're seeing the cloud and they're going, okay, our day's coming. When is it? And every day for 40 years is today the day. So they had some punishment that way. So then we get into these 2 kings. So King Sihon is in this region here, right across Jericho. There's going to be another dude in Deuteronomy 3 called Og, and he's up in the north. And so the scene changes, right? Don't touch Ammon, don't touch Moab, but take these guys out. And we're going to get into that hard passage here. Can someone read 26 through 29?
And I sent messengers from the wilderness of Kedemoth to Sihon, king of Heshbon, with words of peace, saying, let me pass through your land. I will keep strictly to the road, and I will turn neither to the right nor to the left. You shall sell me food for money, that I may eat, to give me water for money, that I may drink. Only let me pass through on foot, just as the descendants of Esau who dwelt in Seir, and the Moabites who dwelt in Ar did for me, until I cross the Jordan to the land which the Lord our God has given.
So all they wanted to do was there's a road that leads into straight across to Jericho here. They just wanted passage. And so they do the peace offering. They were apparently very formidable because they put fear in the other people. But so the same offer that they gave to the Edomites and the Moabites, we're going to give to you. Just let us pass. We'll pay for everything. But then they come out for battle this time, and so these 3 sites are named as battle sites. The Jabbok River is another border that's in there as well. So go ahead and read 33 through 37.
And the Lord our God delivered him over to us, so we defeated him, his sons, and all his people, and took all their cities at that time. We utterly destroyed the men, women, and little ones of every city. We left none remaining. We took only the livestock as plunder for ourselves. The spoil of the cities which we took from Balaam, which is on the bank of the river Arab, and from the city that is in Raphim, as for Gilead, there was not one city too strong for us. The Lord our God delivered all to us. Only you did not go near the land, the people of the law, anywhere along the river Jabbok, or to the cities of the mountains, or wherever the Lord our God had forbidden.
Yeah, does anyone know what the capital of Jordan is? So there's a connection that it goes all the way back, and so again, veracity, the truth of the Bible. So again, that verse is 34, right? That gives a lot of people going, ooh.
Are them people still living there?
They're utterly destroyed. Utterly destroyed. The men, women, and the little ones of every city were left none remaining, and that's where the skeptics go. What God would do that? I don't want any part of that, right? But then as soon as you understand this other background, and we'll get into that more in chapter 3, things start to make a little more sense. So again,
That don't mean they went to hell.
what's that?
That don't mean they didn't go to hell. I don't think that means they went to
Hell?
hell. Yeah.
No,
they
not
killed
necessarily.
him.
Yeah.
They killed him.
Yeah, if they believe. Yeah, exactly. But again, if it's a gene pool, they aren't human, so they aren't fully human. And so there's a question there. It's weird. It takes a lot of digging into. So basically, if this talk of hybrid races, you go, no, that's too weird. I don't want any part of that. Then at least we got to say God is just and God is fair. And so is it consistent that he would arbitrarily say wipe out a people that didn't deserve it? I think we just need to know. Amos is referenced in Amos 2. Yet it was I who destroyed the Amorite before them, though his height was like the height of cedar. So these guys were big dudes. And he was as strong as the oaks. I destroyed his fruit above and roots below. Lots of tree metaphors. And it was I who brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you in the wilderness for 40 years so that you might take possession of the land of the Amorites. So they're going to wipe these guys out, and then basically 2.5 tribes are going to inhabit the land, and then the other are going to be across the other side of Jordan. Okay, let's just go on to chapter 3. So 3, 1 through 5.
It says, then when we turned and went up the road to Bashan, and the Og, king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have delivered him and all his people and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwell in Heshbon. So the Lord our God has delivered into our hands Og, king of Bashan, with all his people, and we attacked him until he had no survivors remaining. And we took all cities at that time. There was not a city which we did not take from them, 60 cities. All the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og and Bashan, all these cities were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many rural towns.
Same thing, here's King Og, another Amorite. They were dividing their kingdoms, I guess, and so they basically keep going up the road, and then they attack the Amorites there. Go ahead and read 6 through 11 also.
It says, and we utterly destroyed them, as we did to Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But all the livestock and the spoil of the cities we took as booty for ourselves. And at that time we took the land from the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites, who were on the side of the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon. The Sidonians called Hermon Syrian, and the Amorites called it Sinir. All the cities of the plain, all Gilead, and all Bashan, as far as Salcah and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og and Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Indeed, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. It is not in Rabbah of the people of Ammon. 9 cubits is its length, and 4 cubits is its width, according to the standard cubit.
So a cubit is about 18 inches. This is a big bed. And so, what's this space called?
It's an anti-cubit.
Cubit, right? So you get the word cubit there. So it's generally the length between the elbow to the fingertip is what a cubit is. So huge. So 13.5, 14 feet by 6 feet, 7 feet, somewhere in there. They found a bed in, guess where? Babylon. Dun dun dun. With exact dimensions as this guy's bed here. And it was, it's like this pagan temple where, what's the God's name? Marduk. Marduk and his divine wife would do that, and that would be blessing on the land. That was the myth, the mythology. And so you're going, okay, we've got a god, small g, mixing in with this. First of all, just from a military perspective, they took out 60 fortified cities, right? That's a great feat. Of course, they had God going before them. So now we're in, this is the Golan Heights today, and Mount Hermon is up here, and this gets really interesting. So it says in verse 6 twice, we utterly destroyed them, twice. And then it goes in to talk about Hermon. Hermon, in Hebrew, it's got the ch sound. It'll be Hermon, is how you would pronounce this. The word for utterly destroyed, same letters in the names. They're cognates. And so, okay, there's a connection there. They're utterly destroyed. And it's Exodus 22. He who sacrifices to any god other than the Lord alone shall be utterly destroyed. And so there's one way people work with this destruction thing is it can mean just put under the ban or cursed, basically ostracized or cut off, or it could mean what it looks like, it utterly destroyed. So what's fascinating about Mount Hermon is it's not in the Bible, but it's a book called First Enoch. It's quoted in the Bible. Jude, I think, quotes from it. I think it's referenced in Revelation. But it says, so going back to Genesis 6, these creatures that came down, that fell, they, according to First Enoch, they came down to Mount Hermon. And so Mount Hermon has been associated with this spiritual demon stuff, to the point where in the Gospels, Jesus takes his disciples from Galilee, which is down here, takes them up to a place called Caesarea Philippi, and it was this pagan area devoted to the Greek god Pan, goats everywhere, and he says, remember what he says there? When Peter says, "You are the Messiah," Jesus says, "The gates of hell shall not prevail." And so, wow, we start tying that together, and it's like, this is the gates of hell up here, gates of Hades. And there was a big cave there. If you saw our gospel study, there's a cave there that the river came out, and then people thought that was a gateway to the underworld. And so, just fascinating, right? The fact that all of this activity is taking place all in this region that Jesus later goes in and basically claims. And you go there today, and it's Christian tourists, right? There's no goat activity, there's no paganism going on there. So again, so when you think about this utter destruction, now you can read it with, oh, there's a problem, and they're not going to prevail against God's plan, and so this is why they have to be done away with. So just kind of, you'll hear this, how can God be a loving God and sanction basically it's genocide, right? You're wiping out the entire people. Well, they're not fully people. There's something else going on. So yeah, the whole Babylon connection and all that. And so again, I don't think they took the 60 cities in their own strength, right? God went before them, and the lessons are there for us. Okay, 12 through, let's just do, how are we doing? Yeah, we can do 12 through 20. And we can break that up. I can read the second half.
And this land which we possessed at that time from Aurora, which is by the river Arnon, and half of the mountains of Gilead and its cities, I gave to the Reubenites and the Gadites. The rest of Gilead and all Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to half the tribe of Manasseh. All the region of Argob with all Bashan was called the land of the giants. Jair, the son of Manasseh, took all the regions of Argob as far as the border of the Gershurites and the Machachites, and called Bashan after his own name, Havoth Jair, to this day. Also I give Gilead to Machir. And to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave from Gilead as far as the river Arnon, the middle of the river as the border, as far as the river Jabbok, the border of the people of Ammon.
The plain also with the Jordan as the border, Jordan River as the border, from the Shinereth, and that's the Sea of Galilee, that's another name, as far as the east side to the Sea of the Arabah, which is the Dead Sea, Salt Sea, below the slopes of Pisgah. Then I commanded you at the time, the Lord your God has given you this land to possess. All of you men of valor shall cross over armed before your brethren, the children of Israel. But your wives, little ones, and livestock, I know that you have much livestock, shall stay in the cities which I have given you, until the Lord has given rest to your brethren as to you. And they also possess the land which the Lord your God is giving them beyond the Jordan. Then each of you may return to his possession which I have given you. So he's talking to these three tribes, half of one, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, way back. So they had a lot of cattle, and this is amazing. This is almost like Texas plain country up here. Relatively flat, gradual, whereas this is all mountainy and rocky, not good for cattle. This is excellent for cattle. So one lesson here, though, is they're exposed, because everyone traveling that international highway would be coming down and swooping in this way. So they're the first to get picked off. And the lesson is they get called the East Siders because they compromise. God wanted them over here in the full inheritance. And so, but they said, no, this looks good to us. And so the lesson is, how much do we do that, right? Oh yeah, I'm good with this. When God, if we just went a little bit further, took another step in faith, how much more would God want to give to us? So this whole area is known as Bashan, and I just thought of, there's a reference in Psalm 22, which is about David writes it, but it reads as if Jesus was speaking it on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Well, Jesus did say that on the cross, didn't he? I called you by day and you did not answer. Where is that? Okay, verse 12. Many bulls have encircled me. Mighty bulls of Bashan have surrounded me. And I don't think he's talking about cattle in the Golan Heights. I think he's talking about this demon activity that's happening here. And if you saw I think it was the first Narnia movie where Aslan is, he's on the altar, and I saw that scene. I thought of this verse: the bulls of Bashan and the demons are just, thinking that they've won. This is that region up there. All right, 21. Yeah, so Cody has here. Don't settle short, which is what these tribes did. Don't settle short of what God wants you to have. 21, and I commanded Joshua at that time, your eyes have seen all the Lord your God has done to these two kings. Will the Lord do to the kingdoms through which you passed? You must not fear them, for the Lord your God himself fights for you. And then Cody writes, these promises are meant for you today as children of Abraham. Remember, we've been grafted in, so these stories are our stories. These people are, in a sense, our people, if only by adoption. Substitute your name for Joshua and claim the promises he has for you, that he will fight for you, but you must not fear. So, and I commanded Harold at that time, saying, your eyes have seen all that the Lord your God has done for you. Right? Put your name in there, and then substitute Jesus for Lord your God, all that Jesus has done for you, and he himself fights for you. 23 through 26.
Then I pled with the Lord at the time of saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. For what God is, there in heaven or on earth, who can do anything like you work in your mighty deeds. I pray, let me cross over and see a good land beyond the Jordan, these pleasant mountains of Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me on your account, and would not listen to me. So the Lord said to me, Enoch, speak no more to me of this matter.
So Moses here is referencing a time where we referenced it last time. He was commanded to speak to the rock to give them water, and he got angry and he struck the rock twice. And God said, no. Do I have it here? No. Basically, you are my representative, and you misrepresented me. And it's serious enough that because of that, you're not going to be able to enter the promised land. And I guess we could asterisk that. You're not going to be able to enter the promised land. So he goes up, Mount Nebo or Pisgah is here. He goes up at the end of Numbers, and he's able to look into the promised land and see it, but he can't set foot in it. And so this passage shows you the close relationship that he and the Lord had. We read this and it sounds harsh. Enough of that. Don't talk to me. But they had that relationship where Moses could say, yes, I know you said I can't go in, but I really want it. Lord, please, let me. Go ahead.
Mount Moab, Moses.
Yeah. So this is all the land of Moab here is in there, and this is where their camp now is here, and that's the plains of Moab. He's in that area there. So you get this questioning God. There's the sense that I can't question God. That means my faith is not strong. Well, not really. God wants you to wrestle with him, and he can handle it. He's big enough. And so that's one takeaway from here. The Lord was angry with me on your account, would not listen to me. The other thing is prayers, right? He prayed. He knew what God's decision was, and he still prayed for a different outcome. God hears the prayers of the righteous. Moses is still considered righteous. He didn't answer the prayer this time. I keep saying this time because right after that incident we talked about where Jesus said the gates of hell will not prevail, you've got this event in Matthew 17 called Transfiguration, where Elijah, and who's there? Moses. Moses sets foot in the promised land. He just had to wait 1,400 years for that prayer to be answered. So I get impatient after 10 minutes and, come on, show me a sign, give me something here. But Moses had to wait a long time, but he finally did set foot in the promised land. And so just kind of a different perspective to think about. Go on top of Pisgah, lift your eyes towards the west. So this is here. Behold it with your eyes, you shall not cross over the Jordan, which he didn't. He got to the promised land by a different way, for sure. But command Joshua, and I love this, encourage him, strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, he shall cause them to inherit the land which you will see. So we stayed in the valley opposite Baal Peor down here. So it hit me yesterday, the word encourage contains the word courage. And this whole episode is good and bad. You see they feared, and yet God's saying don't fear. So when you're encouraging someone, it's like you're removing their fear, you're lifting them up. Whether it's fear, anxiety, worry, doubt, when you encourage someone, you're taking that fear away from them. And so I love that application, and you're strengthening them, lifting them up. And just some final thoughts, because this is closing this preamble type of this contract. And what, in an ancient agreement, this would be the area where the king who's just conquered a people, but he's going to be nice to them. I'm going to show you why you need to give your loyalty to me. Well, God's doing it differently. I'm showing you that you can trust me, and I'm leading and I'm going ahead of you. So chapter 3 closes that part, and then chapter 4 gets into Moses will be talking about strengthening and encouraging the people as they go in. They're about to go into the land. Karen Pryor, back at verses 23 through 25, wrote, This deeper understanding of God's purposes for this people in the land gives added impetus to Moses gathering the people and delivery of his final discourse. So he's about to give his sermons of encouragement. These encapsulate the word and teaching of their Father in heaven, who desires to prepare his children to face the challenges of the great mission that lie ahead. And that's exactly why we're studying Deuteronomy, right? We learn that this encouragement and the strength that God hasn't changed. He still goes before us. He still guides us. He's still like a guide. If you're in a strange land and you have a guide, well, they're going to keep you out of trouble and they're going to tell you what you need to know. If you lose track of the guide, then you're lost. And so we need to stick to God as the guide. And then God is also the warrior who fights our battles. This is how I fight my battles, that song that was a few years ago. We see that here. They were successful because God went before them. And then the last thought is he's a father. He desires to give gifts, and the land is a gift in this sense. Even to the other people around him, the Ammonites, the Moabites, they all got the gift of land. But what the writer to Hebrews says, it is a discipline that you endure. God deals with you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? So he's going to have to correct when we need correction, but he desires to give us gifts.
So how long was the time of the battle?
It was probably, we aren't told exactly. We know it was at 40 years after. So they think it's about 1400 BC.
Or was it over a span of 2 years that the battles occurred?
We aren't sure. Yeah, could have been a few months or to a year or more. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of battles. Like,
Yeah, it
we
is.
tired.
Yeah. And we don't have any record. I'm sure people had casualties, but we don't have any record of it. So God protected them. Any questions on this? It just seems like it was just going to be history, but then the more you dig into it, it's like, oh, there's a lot going on here.
On one of the forums I followed, I hate to say debate, but they post topics and people discuss it. But one of them was about the Ephraim this week and why they were still there after.
Yeah.
And it was interesting and good. Continue that discussion.
Yeah, and it's like people don't know. It's like, well, if the whole point of the flood was to wipe the Nephilim out, well, that didn't work. So, did they tread water, or who knows? But, yeah. So next time we'll be in 4, and we'll get 4 is a great chapter again for encouragement and instruction for the heart of the Father. And now we're going to get into God's heart for His people and the relationship that He desires. We got through that in good time for 2 chapters. Any prayer requests?